Welcome back everyone, it's War Within time. So, when the alpha drops, it is the perfect time for us to go hunting. Now, Blizzard wants everyone to talk about the big features, the content, the story, all the really juicy things to sell copies. Honestly, I'm more interested in the unexpected, almost surprise bits that kind of make us as existing players just have a better time. So, we poked around alpha to find all the cool things. There are some crazy improvements that look tiny but will feel pretty huge. And I'll start it off with a pretty damn fun one. We appear to be getting bonus XP. Look at this, a 5% bonus to XP for having maxed out a character. Now, I've got no idea whether this will go higher with a larger bonus to XP, but it was one of the first things that we spotted on the alpha servers. Yeah, took him 20 years, right? But they've finally done it. Early expansion alt farmers rejoice, I suppose. We'll have to see whether this kind of thing will stack, though. So maybe it'll stack up to like 20% if you've got 4 characters at max level. Hard to know. We'll have to wait and see. What's in store with today's sponsor, Boot.dev, who we work with because their founders are fellow viewers of the channel. So here's the deal. They will be teaching you programming. They're a programming RPG that makes learning back-end development fun. They've got quests, levels, achievements, a global leaderboard to keep it spicy. They've even got a new implementation of raid bosses. But code Bellular at boot.dev/Bellular gets you 25% off your first payment. And of course, there's beans to be made. It's back-end development. US back-end devs earn over 100 grand a year median salary per Stack Overflow. And being a programmer, you generally have pretty damn terrific options with working from home and that kind of thing. Now, Boot is specializing in back-end development using Python and Go at your own pace. Their mission is basically to avoid tutorial hell and to get you just coding, and that's what their platform is entirely geared toward. And just going through the various topics, I mean, you can see for yourself, they have an utter boatload of content. They're starting off super approachable, and then, credit to them, they go properly in depth, and they're adding new content all the time. Essentially, a one-stop shop that allows you to avoid bouncing around YouTube tutorial hell and instead follow a focused end-to-end learning path from professionals in the field that is all oriented on the actual profession of back-end development. And their Discord is great. It's full of like-minded people who are also learning. Honestly, it slays how I learn programming, and again, you can get started today with 25% off your first purchase following my link using code Bellular at boot.dev/Bellular, and of course, 30-day, no questions asked, money back guarantee, and so on. Thanks then for supporting the show, and with that previous change, it's clear Blizzard wants us playing alts. So much so, there are actually new achievements for doing every dungeon in Mythic as each role. So, I think that's kind of interesting then, the idea that we could be getting some role-specific achievements. And with that, well, the alt improvements are kind of out of hand. Let's talk about some warband things. The warband backgrounds are in, and they actually work, unlike the mock-up we saw at BlizzCon. Now, warbands have got no limit. Literally everything on your WoW account is in your warband. The only limit is you can only feature 5 characters in the login screen. There's no word right now on if we'll be able to unlock other login screens, but I mean, come on, Blizzard, it's an obvious choice. See all this when you log into an alt and it's cluttered and annoying? Well, now it's gone. With the new warband system effectively being a fancy way for calling things account bound, they've done a neat thing with campaign quest completion. If you've done a campaign quest on another character, you won't see an icon on your map at all. Now, when you go to the actual NPC, you'll see a grayed out version, so you can still go and repeat the content, but otherwise, once you do it, on your whole account, it's kind of like marked off, just out of sight, out of mind, not cluttering your UI. Okay, next, we gotta talk transmog. We knew this was coming, but it bears repeating just because it feels so good. For old mogs, you can now just pick your fastest raid clearer and go to town, because no matter what class you're using, if you pick up an item and say it's soulbound or warband bound, well, it goes into your transmog collection. That means a paladin can collect cloth. Do you want a mage collecting warglaives? Sure. Basically, the days of needing a complicated spreadsheet or an add-on to track what class you should take to an old raid to get the item you want, that is actually gone now. And one of the best parts is this neat little pop-up. If you pick up an item that's new, it basically just has a lovely little sound effect and visual for that little hit of dopamine. Not that your alts are useless, of course. This basically just means that any character doing any content will have a far higher chance of throwing things into your transmog collection, which pretty much just makes, well, everything far more rewarding. Get a load of this delicious new drop-down. Basically, you don't need to log into an alt anymore to see what you have or don't have. You can just check the appearance of, like, anything, it seems. Like, you can just go to the drop-down and click what class. So if you're logged into your warrior, but you want to take a look at a piece of, say, mage tier, well, you can do that. I mean, look, it's not really a game-changing thing, but it's just a nice little UI tweak that I really appreciate, and of course it's pretty damn handy for looking at the new War Within sets on PTR, many of which are really, really nice. Next then, warbands. So, we already knew there was going to be a warband bank. What we didn't know is that there's this achievement to get a distance inhibitor for it. We don't know what it is, but it does sound like mobile banking, but for your warband bank, which honestly seems awesome. Now, the bank has got 5 unlockable tabs. The last one does appear to be super, super expensive. Again, it's alpha, we don't exactly know, but certainly the idea of having a shared stash between all of my characters that I may even be able to access in the field, well, yeah, that's kind of amazing, and a hell of a lot less just clicks and fiddling than sending mails to characters. Now, speaking of sharing things between characters, Warbound gear. This is a thing of beauty. A mail item picked up by a paladin that can be sent to another character, but not sold on the auction house. Basically, being able to do this has allowed Blizzard to just open the floodgates, really. Now, specifically, this was a drop from a rare in Cas Algar. Now, in the game, like in the past, we've had bind on account gear tokens and that kind of thing, but those were always a system, right? They had to be added as a part of a patch. Maybe you'd have some currency or something to farm, like with the Dream Surge Coalescence. But here, this Warbound gear, that's just basically in the game, right? It's always active. And that means just at a baseline level, starting a new alt will almost certainly be way nicer because your main will probably lead to you having a warband bank that is just full of starting gear to throw over to your alts. And it's not like that gear will be useless. We obviously have still got to test this at endgame, but it seems that the warband stuff, like, it will drop below the item level of what you are currently doing. We don't know how much below, but I like the idea that, say, if I'm, I don't know, a heroic raider, I might have some, I don't know, LFR, a bit better gear that I can just throw onto a new alt to allow it to get started quick. So yeah, really nice. Next, and look, I know that this isn't something we really care about, but just look at this new icon, little pop-up, right? It's quite nice. And overall, what we're seeing is the UI of WoW is slowly being overhauled, and it's starting to look real good. Over in the WoWcast episode they did, you saw Ian basically say that halfway through Dragonflight, they took a look at their UI and realized it was basically just a massive mess, right? When you open the world map and it's just icon soup. So they're essentially taking a look and feel pass at all of that stuff. Next then, less UI and more UX, user experience, and it is RP skipping. So, I noticed that during campaign quests on the PTR, anytime that there was some extended RP or dialogue, the game actually gave me an option to skip it. Now, I don't know if this is a thing that is just for testing, but I did notice one thing, right? Our press accounts technically had already done that content on the warband. I don't really know why it was like that, but maybe this is just the case that if you've already done content on your warband, you maybe unlock like an RP skip or something like that. So if you plan to power level your alts, but still by doing the campaign, well, yeah, you can go even faster. It's always lovely when you've got somewhere in the game to represent what you're doing, and that's why there was a big sigh of relief when we spotted this portal in Donegal, which is the new city, and yeah, it's really nice. It is the Timeway dungeon portal. So in case you're not aware, they added this recently in Dragonflight. It's just a really beautiful area that takes you to all of the season's Mythic Plus dungeons. It does seem that that place, along with Lindormi, is actually here to stay. Hopefully they cook a little bit harder with it as time goes on, maybe add some cool things there, but yeah, a nice little change. And while we're talking about that sort of thing, it does appear that they've added in a trading post in Donegal as well, so you won't have to go back to Stormwind or Orgrimmar. Trinkets, right. If you thought the Dragonflight had some pretty interesting trinkets, good news, because they've just taken that to 11 this time around. We're seeing trinkets that have got proper abilities and tooltips attached to them. Some of them look really, really fun to use. Obviously, it's early days, but the notion here that they're actually happy to just go and make more out there trinkets that are a bit more interactive and fun, hell yeah, directionally, it seems great. Another thing that seems great, but is very much not trinkets, is Xal'atath. Okay, no spoilers, don't worry. Xal'atath, though, is maybe the most dangerous antagonist we've had in a while. Like, immediately she feels so much more threatening than the Jailer, and I can't say more without ruining your experience, right? But let's just say that she very quickly does prove herself to be a force to be reckoned with. And also, this expansion is basically, like, as much about her as it is anyone else. I mean, our first season crests for, like, gear upgrades, those are, seemingly anyway, called Harbinger crests. That's not to say that Xal'atath is the final boss, though, of our first raid, because that is the Nerubian Queen. If I was betting, I would still say I think Xal'atath will probably survive this expansion somehow. If you've ever wanted to put your life in the line for Dalaran, now appears to be the time. This is not playable content on Alpha, but we could piece it together with context clues, and also this armor that very much looks like it will be from our pre-patch event. So it seems that we will be defending Dalaran from some sort of attack. Obviously, Dalaran, super important city, Khadgar's there, and there's a lot of super powerful magical items, the sorts of things that I'm sure Xal'atath would love. Again, I literally don't know what the story is. Blizzard have said that like, intro experience, that will be kept for live, so it's not going to be spoiled in testing. Certainly keen to see what's there, though. Next, then, this is weird, and we don't know if these are part of the pre-patch, maybe, or if this is something that just, I don't know, is on Alpha but hasn't been explained yet, but basically, it seems we're getting a little nostalgic. There's a world event, literal this time, where Azeroth's memories of major battles essentially bubble up, and we've got to go and fight echoes of old bosses. They seem to be called World Song Memory or Radiant Echoes events, and they appear to have difficulties as well, including the Radiant Discord mode that grants the Echo Chaser title. Yeah, I hope Liquid wear that title during the next Race to World First. That would be very funny. Ultimately, though, we don't really know what this is, just we've seen some fragments that point towards it. It's something they haven't announced, though, so maybe a new feature. Void. Just want to make it clear, this is a very voidy expansion. Like, very much so. Damn near every dungeon or raid has got a boss that is clearly doing some Cosmic Void stuff, right down to this Void ethereal boss who we see in the first raid with these pretty damn cool-looking weapons and a series of nothing personal kid-style mechanics that sound really cool. And when I say Cosmic Void, I mean Cosmic Void. This is not N'Zoth Old God stuff. This is the far more, like, advanced kind of space-ish stuff that, as an example, we saw in the Sarkareth boss room. Honestly, it looks pretty cool, and if you find this interesting, just wait till the last point in this video. First, though, we got Magni, and it turns out Magni has somewhat lost his shine, and there is a canonical reason why he's lost his shine. It's only a minor bit of storytelling so far, but this is an expansion that is starting with a few very strong steps on story and characters, actually. We're seeing a clear refocusing on WoW's core cast. I mean, Dragonflight, like, I'm glad that it didn't do them as much. We absolutely needed a break. Let's be real, the dragons maybe weren't the most engaging characters in the world, so seeing some of the old gang back after they've changed a little bit, and we've got a little bit of a breather, that, yeah, is so far looking quite strong. The next point, then, something that became really obvious as we looked through the Dungeon Journal in the Alpha, is, well, take a look at this. 6.6 million damage on normal difficulty. Yeah, we're going to make Legion scaling look like a joke, like, by the time we get to Midnight, if we don't get a stat squish. I do imagine we will for Midnight. But yeah, we're going to be doing just big deeps in this expansion. Lovely big numbers. I know that stat squishes feel kind of shitty, and big numbers look and feel fun, so at least we'll get some big fun numbers. Okay, next, unannounced class changes. There are a number of fairly cool things. We have not had time to go through all of them, but there are some seriously nice things being cooked up for classes. We've got, as an example, monks being able to buddy with someone for their transcendence. We've got this real sick dash thing by double jumping after rolling, and, well, for the druids, your thing is so nice that you get an entire point in the video. Right. Here's the message that Matt sent into our work Discord whenever he spotted a very special talent for druids. Druids, with flight form, can shift without wasting a global cooldown. So for the new druid of the claw, cat bear weaving, for cat or owl weaving as a resto druid, this is really incredible. Like, this is the sort of thing that druids have just been wanting for like 20 years, and they can finally do it. And druids are actually winning so hard, they get another point in the video, and that is, well, the Sky Ride flight form. We knew this was coming, but now we can actually play it. And being able to leap off a mountain, and then swap form, and then dive to build speed in druid flight form, like, honestly, it just feels amazing. Just in that kind of like, the raw fantasy of being a druid is just expressed by those game mechanics. Next point then is crazy lore reveals. I'm not going to be spoiling major expansion things for you here in this video, but there are some pretty huge lore reveals that are worth speculating about. As an example, this is less an active story spoiler, but we did find out that Karesh, which is the homeworld of the Ethereals, apparently had World Soul. And that World Soul started to sing and show visions to people right before Dementius came and tore it apart. So that number one sounds like a lore video that we'll have to do fairly soon, and it also sounds like perhaps an Argus-style patch zone within this expansion that maybe would set up stakes for the Midnight expansion? Perhaps? I don't know. Anyway, that is the selection of just cool, interesting things you might not have known about, or just the sorts of things that will be handy. I mean, the idea of playing the game with warbands on, where our maps are not full of quest icons, we've got warband gear, we've got the warband bank, and just all of those nice little tweaks and changes. It's just the sort of thing that I think makes the game better at a baseline level, and also just makes it feel a bit more modern, which definitely the UI like tweaks to make the map just like less chaos. Yeah. That's good stuff. Ultimately then, we will be having new alpha builds every week until there is beta, so expect a great many videos as we try to document and just bring everything that is interesting to you, and of course, try to find out what's looking really good and what maybe will need a little bit of work. Okay, that's it from me. Let me know what sorts of things you want us to be hunting down on alpha and beta. I'll see you next time.